Chosen one. The people who hurt your vision did not attack it. You handed it to them. I know that is a difficult sentence to receive, but it is the most important sentence in this entire video, and if you can sit with it long enough to let it become a diagnosis rather than an accusation, it will protect everything you are building for the rest of your life. The vision that lost momentum after you shared it was not sabotaged from the outside. It was exposed before it was armored. It was placed in hands that were constitutionally incapable of holding it, not because those people are evil, but because they have not paid the price that creates the capacity to recognize what a pearl actually is. And a person who cannot recognize a pearl will not treat it like one, not out of malice, out of genuine, complete inability to see what you are holding. 3 days ago, you felt it. The moment the last word left your mouth, the sentence that described the plan, the number, the opportunity, the direction, you felt something shift in the atmosphere that you could not immediately name. A specific wrongness, like the feeling of having opened a door that should have stayed closed, like the energy of the room had just consumed something that was not meant to be consumed yet, and you wanted to take it back. But the words were already in the air, and the people who received them were already processing them through the only framework they had available. A framework that did not include the capacity to understand why what you just described was significant. That feeling was not paranoia. That was discernment, arriving one sentence too late. Today, it arrives before the sentence. Welcome to Chosen Wealth Wisdom. The Chosen One does not just protect the vision. The Chosen One learns to read the room before the pearl leaves the hand. Before we go any further, here is what I need from you right now. If you have felt the specific regret of having shared something significant with someone who responded in a way that made you wish you had stayed silent, not because they attacked you, but because their response revealed they were entirely unable to receive what you gave them, type the words, "My pearls are protected," in the comments right now. Drop it right now, because that experience is not a social failure. It is a curriculum, and today you graduate from it. And subscribe to Chosen Wealth Wisdom before this video ends, because what I am releasing on this channel is the complete strategic intelligence for chosen ones who are learning to match the value of what they carry with the caliber of the audience they carry it to. Stay with me. Now let me give you the word that will make this framework permanent. The word is Marguerite, spelled M-A-R-G-A-R-I-T. It is the Greek word that Jesus uses in Matthew chapter 7 verse 6, the verse most people quote without understanding the full weight of what is being said. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. Marguerite. Pearl. And to understand why Jesus chose this specific image above every other image available to him, you need to understand what a pearl actually is. A pearl is the only gemstone on earth that is not found. It is not mined from rock. It is not extracted from the ground. It is grown. And it is grown through a process that begins not with beauty, but with pain. An irritant, a grain of sand, a parasite. A small wound enters the soft tissue of a living organism. And the organism, unable to expel it, does the only thing available to it. It begins to coat the irritant with layer after layer of nacre, a crystalline substance produced from its own body, until what began as a wound is slowly, over years of uninterrupted process, converted into something of extraordinary value and beauty. The pearl is crystallized suffering. It is what happens when a living thing refuses to be destroyed by its irritant and instead transforms it through patience, through time, through the quiet, invisible, continuous work of an organism that does not announce its process to anyone. The pearl does not form in the open water. It forms in the closed shell, in the protected, private, sealed environment of the oyster that has learned to turn its wound into its wealth. Your financial wisdom is a Marguerite. Everything you know about money, about patience, about building, about the difference between the appearance of success and the substance of it, you did not learn it from a classroom. You learned it from the irritant. from the financial wound that entered your life and that you refused to be destroyed by, from the season of lack that you coated, layer by layer, with the nacre of discipline, of faith, of private study, of quiet persistence, until what began as a wound became the most valuable thing you carry. Your breakthrough is not luck. It is years of accumulated crystallization, and it looks like a pearl because it was produced like one inside a closed shell, in the dark, through a process that no outside observer witnessed. Now here is the revelation that most people never reach when they quote this verse. The problem Jesus is identifying is not that the pigs are evil. The word he uses for pigs, chazir, in Hebrew, refers specifically to an animal that is constitutionally, biologically, permanently unable to process what a pearl is, not unwilling, unable. A pig that encounters a pearl does not experience the pearl as valuable and choose to reject it. It experiences the pearl as something that cannot be eaten, cannot be digested, cannot produce any outcome that its biological framework is designed to recognize, and so it responds the only way its constitution allows. It tramples it, not from cruelty, from incapacity. And here is the financial theology of this. When you share your marguerite, your crystallized, pain-purchased, years in the making financial wisdom and strategy with someone whose framework was not built through the same process of transformation, you are not meeting resistance. You are meeting incapacity. They are not rejecting your vision because they are against you. They are rejecting it because they have not paid the price of the oyster and therefore do not have the biological framework to recognize what the oyster produces. They look at the pearl and genuinely see something that cannot feed them right now. And their response, the doubt, the mockery dressed as concern, the advice that is really the summary of their own limitations, is not an attack. It is a diagnosis. It tells you not that your pearl is worthless, but that you placed it in the wrong hands. The failure was not the sharing. The failure was the selection. And today, that changes. Now let me show you what heaven observed in you that confirms you are ready for the Margaret level of stewardship. The first thing heaven observed was your refusal to weaponize your wealth. There were people, specific people, whose faces you can see clearly right now, who deserved the public humiliation of watching your success arrive after they dismissed your potential. And the opportunity to deliver that humiliation presented itself. A moment when posting the evidence of your breakthrough would have been receivable as a legitimate victory lap and would have landed exactly where it was aimed, directly in the attention of the people whose doubt once had the power to diminish you, and you did not do it. Not because you were not tempted, because something in you understood that using the pearl as a weapon is still a misuse of the pearl. That the marguerite is not produced by the oyster so it can be thrown. It is produced so it can be stewarded. And a chosen one who throws the pearl even at a deserving target is still a chosen one who threw the pearl. The restraint was not weakness. It was the evidence that you have separated the value of what you carry from the emotional satisfaction of demonstrating it. That separation is the qualification for the next level of provision. The second thing heaven observed was your quiet investment. While the social world around you was performing its ambitions at maximum volume, you were building yours at minimum visibility. The investments you made in knowledge, the courses, the books, the quiet hours of study that no one applauded, and that did not produce a single post worth of content. These were the layers of nacre being applied to the irritant. The assets you acquired without announcing them. The relationships you cultivated without documenting them. The skills you developed without staging them for an audience. Each one a layer, each layer invisible from the outside. The cumulative result of all of them, the fully formed marguerite of your financial intelligence and your resource base, is a thing of such completeness and density that the people who were watching your surface in those years have no framework for understanding where it came from, because it came from the closed shell, from the place they were not permitted to observe. And what they cannot observe, they cannot interrupt. Stop. Let that land. The quiet investments were not modest. They were the most aggressive financial moves you made in the last several years. Aggressive in the most powerful sense, directed entirely toward the depth of the pearl rather than the width of the audience. And the pearl that depth produces is worth more than anything the width could have generated. Now, let me give you 5 specific signs that you have been placing your Margaret in front of the wrong audience. 5 identifiable, real-world patterns that indicate the pearl is being trampled rather than treasured. The first sign is post-sharing exhaustion. You know this feeling precisely. It is different from ordinary tiredness. It arrives specifically after a conversation in which you shared something significant, a plan, a strategy, a vision, a number with someone whose framework was not built to receive it. And the exhaustion is not emotional fatigue from the conversation itself. It is energetic depletion from the specific experience of watching something you built in the dark, layer by layer, in the closed shell, through years of patient crystallization, be received as ordinary, be processed through a framework of limitation, be returned to you, wrapped in the language of why it probably will not work, why you should be careful, why the timing is wrong. That depletion is your body registering the cost of the misplaced pearl. The energy it takes to hold your vision intact against the weight of a framework that cannot contain it is enormous, and you feel it in your body for hours afterward. When post-sharing exhaustion arrives on schedule after a specific conversation, receive it as data. Wrong audience. The pearl goes back in the shell. The second sign is the sudden bureaucratic obstacle. You share the plan, and then, with a timing that seems too precise to be coincidental, something in the execution path of the plan encounters friction. A document that was processing cleanly develops a complication. A relationship that was building smoothly hits an unexpected snag. A timeline that was moving according to plan gets disrupted by an external factor that was not present before the disclosure. I want to be theologically careful here. Not every obstacle is supernatural warfare. Some obstacles are simply obstacles. But the pattern, the specific, recurring correlation between premature disclosure and subsequent friction in the disclosed plan is worth taking seriously as data. When the obstacle arrives in the wake of the sharing, the question to ask is not who is responsible. The question is, did the sharing invite an energy into the plan that the plan was not yet fortified enough to withstand? If the answer is yes, the response is not paranoia. It is adjustment. The pearl goes deeper into the shell. The plan goes back into the sathar until it is strong enough to survive the atmosphere of public knowledge. The third sign is the mockery feedback. It arrives wearing the costume of concern. I'm just being realistic. I don't want to see you get hurt. Have you really thought this through? The language is the language of care. The function is the language of limitation. The summary of the speaker's own framework of what is possible being projected onto your vision as though it were an objective assessment of yours. The mockery feedback is not always conscious. The person delivering it often genuinely believes they are helping you. What they are actually doing is processing your pearl through the only framework available to them. A framework built from their own experience of what does not work, what is too ambitious, what falls apart, and returning it to you, compressed to the dimensions of their ceiling rather than expanded to the dimensions of your assignment. When mockery feedback arrives, do not argue with it. Do not defend the pearl to the pig. The pearl does not need defending. The pearl needs removing from the conversation. Withdraw it without drama, protect it without announcement, and find the audience that was built at the same altitude as the vision. The fourth sign is the sudden appearance of the energy vampire. You have noticed this pattern with a precision that surprised you the first time you mapped it clearly. The people who are consistently unavailable when the work requires doing and consistently available when the results become visible. The sudden partnerships proposed by people who want proximity to the pearl without having paid the price of the oyster. The requests for collaboration, for access, for resources, for introductions arriving specifically in the wake of evidence that the crystallization process has produced something valuable. The energy vampire is not necessarily malicious. They are operating from a framework that recognizes value without understanding its origins, that sees the pearl and wants it without being willing to become the kind of oyster that produces it. Your response to the energy vampire is not anger. It is discernment. You are not obligated to share the pearl with everyone who can see that it is beautiful. You are obligated to steward it toward the purposes it was produced to serve. And those purposes do not include funding the ambitions of people who refused the process that produces the pearl. The fifth sign is the clouded vision. This one is the most subtle and the most damaging of the five. You had clarity, real, specific, actionable, directional clarity about the financial strategy you were building, the kind of clarity that arrives in the quiet, in the private room, in the Sathar environment where the margaret forms. And then you shared it. And the sharing introduced into the clarity a contamination that is difficult to identify precisely, but impossible to ignore in its effects. Other people's doubts, other people's alternative suggestions, other people's versions of what your vision should look like, if it were adjusted to fit the dimensions of their framework. All of these entered the clear water of your strategy and made it murky. The vision that was razor-sharp in the private room became blurred by the interference of too many incompatible frequencies. When the clouded vision arrives after a sharing, the solution is not to think harder or plan more. The solution is to return to the closed shell, to take the vision back into the silence where it formed, to remove it from the atmosphere that contaminated it, and allow the quiet to restore its original resolution. The clarity is still there. It was not destroyed. It was obscured. The Sathar will clean it. Now let me speak directly about the spiritual warfare operating specifically against the Marguerite season, because the enemy's strategy in this season is the most psychologically sophisticated in his entire operational playbook, and naming it precisely is the most protective thing I can do for you right now. He cannot take the pearl from you directly. He does not have access to the closed shell. What he can do, what he does with extraordinary effectiveness against chosen ones who are carrying something of genuine value, is exploit the two specific vulnerabilities that every chosen one carries in the season of crystallization: loneliness and the need for validation. The loneliness of the closed shell is real. The process that forms the Marguerite is a solitary process. The oyster does not form the pearl in community, it forms it in isolation. And the isolation that the Sathar requires, the withdrawal from the performance economy, the reduction of premature sharing, the disciplined silence around the plan, this produces a genuine and sometimes painful aloneness. A sense of being unseen in the very season when the most significant work of your life is being done. And the enemy knows that the chosen one, in genuine loneliness, is the chosen one most vulnerable to the relief of being known, of sharing the pearl simply for the comfort of not being alone with it anymore. And the need for validation is equally real. The crystallization process requires sustained investment in something that produces no immediate visible return. And the human spirit, even the most disciplined and faithful human spirit, has a legitimate need for occasional external confirmation that the investment is real, that the direction is correct, that the closed shell work is producing what the invisible process promises. The enemy knows this need, and he sends the wrong audience at exactly the right moment, when the loneliness is at its peak and the need for validation is at its most acute, and offers the relief of being heard in exchange for the exposure of the pearl to an environment it cannot survive. The weapon against both vulnerabilities is what I call sacred sequestration, not the sequestration of isolation. The chosen one was not designed to be permanently alone with the pearl. Sacred sequestration is the disciplined practice of matching the pearl to the audience before the sharing happens, rather than after. Of asking, before the words leave your mouth, has this person paid the price of the oyster? Do they carry the framework that was built through the same process of transformation that produced this pearl? Can they receive what I am about to give them at the level at which it was produced? If the answer is no, they are not an enemy. They are simply not the audience. And the sacred sequestration of the Margaret means finding the audience that is, rather than giving the pearl to whoever is available. The relief of loneliness is real. The need for validation is real. And both of them can be met by the right people, in the right context, at the right level of the conversation. Sacred sequestration is not the refusal of community. It is the elevation of the standard for the community that the pearl is brought into. Say this out loud right now. My success is a covenant kept in private. I do not owe the world an explanation of how the pearl was formed. I do not owe every available audience the experience of my Margaret. I choose the audience with the same intentionality that I chose the process. I protect the pearl, not from fear but from wisdom, not from pride but from stewardship. The closed shell is not my prison, it is my laboratory, and what it is producing will be revealed at the timing heaven has determined to the audience. Heaven has prepared in the fullness that the protected process was always designed to achieve. My pearls are protected, my vision is sealed, and the silence that surrounds my success is not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. It is the silence of someone who has learned exactly who to say it to. Say it again. Let the declaration become the governing principle of every disclosure decision you make from this moment forward. Now receive the final activation. Place one hand over your mouth not as shame, but as the physical seal of the chosen steward, who has learned that the timing and the audience of the disclosure are as important as the disclosure itself. Hold it for one breath. Let the gesture be the physical acknowledgement that what you carry is too valuable to be released carelessly. Then move that hand to your heart, the place where the Marguerite lives, where the crystallization is happening, where the closed shell work is producing something that the open water could never produce. And hold both the sealed mouth and the protected heart in the same breath. Then open your hand, palm up. Fingers spread the posture of the steward, who is not hoarding the pearl, but stewarding it, who is not hiding from the world, but protecting the pearl until the world it is meant for is ready to receive it. And say these words: I stop casting my Marguerite before audiences that were not built to receive it. I honor the process that produced the pearl by protecting it with the same patience and the same discipline that the crystallization required. I choose the closed shell over the premature disclosure. I choose the right audience over the available audience. I choose the fullness of what the Sathar produces over the relief of the incomplete sharing. The pearl I am carrying was formed in pain and time and faithfulness in the dark. It deserves to be received by the audience that was formed in the same way. And until that audience is assembled and confirmed, the shell remains closed. The process continues uninterrupted. The Marguerite crystallizes to its full, complete, covenant-authorized magnificence. And when it is revealed, it will be revealed in the fullness that the closed shell always promised. Amen. Receive this decree over your Margaret season. I declare that the closed shell of your Sathar is fully sealed as of this declaration. Every premature disclosure that was scheduled to drain the crystallization process has been intercepted by the wisdom of this word. The loneliness of the closed shell has been named and met with the truth that the right audience is being prepared, not absent, being prepared. The need for validation has been met with the confirmation that what is forming in the darkness has already been fully seen and fully celebrated in the realm that governs the outcome. I declare that the 5 signs of the misplaced pearl are fully recognized and fully addressed as of this moment. The post-sharing exhaustion will now arrive as diagnostic intelligence rather than depleting confusion, and the diagnosis it delivers will be acted upon immediately and without sentimentality. The bureaucratic obstacle will be received as the data. It is evidence of the atmospheric cost of premature disclosure, and the plan will be returned to the protection of the closed shell until it is fortified enough to survive. The open air. The mockery feedback will be received as a framework report rather than a truth claim. It reveals the ceiling of the speaker, not the altitude of the vision. The energy vampire will be seen for what it is, a person who can recognize the pearl but has not paid the price of the oyster and met with warmth and appropriate distance simultaneously. And the clouded vision will be returned to the Satha silence that clarifies without apology and without delay. I declare that the sacred sequestration is fully operational over your disclosure decisions from this moment forward. Every word about the plan is pre-screened through the single question: has this person paid the price of the oyster? Every audience is evaluated not by their availability, but by their preparation. Every moment of loneliness in the closed shell is met with the truth that what forms in the dark is worth the darkness. And every pearl that has been previously cast before the wrong audience is recalled to the shell for the recrystallization that restores it to its full density and full value. I declare that the marguerite of your financial wisdom, everything you have crystallized through the irritant, through the wound, through the patient, private, unannounced process of years of faithfulness in the closed shell, is building to the fullness that the assignment requires. Not a lesser version of what it could have been. Not a thinned, partially spent, prematurely exposed approximation of the vision. The full thing, the complete pearl, formed to the density that only uninterrupted process can produce. And when it is revealed to the world, the right world, the prepared world, the audience that was built at the same altitude as the pearl, it will be undeniable, because it was protected until it was complete. Like this video right now, as your seal, your declaration that the marguerite is sealed, the shell is closed, and the crystallization continues uninterrupted until the full completion of what the process was always designed to produce. Subscribe to Chosen Wealth Wisdom so that every layer of the discernment framework finds you before the next disclosure decision rather than after it. Because the marguerite season requires ongoing calibration of the audience. And this channel is the ongoing intelligence for the chosen steward who has learned that what you protect is as important as what you build. Drop a comment right now and tell me, which of the 5 signs of the misplaced pearl have you experienced most recently? I am reading every one. I am praying over every name. The shell is closed. The process is uninterrupted. The marguerite is forming to its full completion. Well done, chosen one. Well done.